This is another ACEMAGIC. This one here is another in their Matrix Matrix M5 lineup. I've done the Matrix M5. I have not done the Matrix Mini M5. Now, what are these here? These are very powerful mini PCs focusing heavily on high levels of CPU compute. Very good. Why would you buy a mini PC? Well, prices are horrible right now. I said this in my other mini PC reviews for ACEMAGIC and other brands. Prices are very terrible. Very, very, very terrible. For desktop computers, desktop components, buying that kind of stuff can cost you a fortune. Mini PCs are in some way a bit of a holdout. They are still they've gone up in price a little bit, but they're still very reasonably priced. You can get very large amounts of effective computing with a mini PC and not pay even a fraction as much as a desktop computer. If you don't need, the dedicated graphics and RTX 5090 and all that kind of stuff, you just want something that's going to be very, very capable now. Mini PCs have always been a very compelling solution, and they're being even more so because their prices are actually going up slower than desktop components. It seems like they're doing really good stuff in terms of, the longevity of their products. They do use good quality components inside from what I can see, and based on the, longevity tests so far, that seems to support that. Okay, so what is this here? The Matrix Mini. It does have a Intel chip. This is an Intel-based solution. It does not say on here. It's going to have a nice, powerful 14650HX CPU, which is capable. Honestly, you can do a lot with it. It's very nice. Isn't that nice? All that memory, good, powerful CPU, and storage in this market. Who is a slightly different chassis than some of the other ones that I've played with from ACEMAGIC. It's actually shorter. I guess that's what makes it mini. It does have almost the exact same footprint here as a M4 Mac Mini, which is nice. It just looks clean on the desk if you set it beside a Mac Mini. That's always a nice thing. This is generally supplied with pretty fast USB, the 3.2, generation 3.2, whatever. So they're going to be nice fast USBs in the front there. Audio, power, which says power. That's cute. Little thing there. On the back here, we get more ports, HDMI or DisplayPort, whichever you want. You do get the lock that releases the top there, very easy to get into, and a bunch more USB-A. So you get a lot of ports on this thing, to be honest. That's Ethernet under there. Okay, so that's there. And you'll see the top won't come off right away because there's actually a little lock here. So you just unlock that. And now with this feed out, screws out, and the unlock released, pop that out. Okay, and there you go. And look at that. That's a nice little robust... Is that metal? I don't know. This little sheet there. And looking inside, very nice. I've seen more Huawei NVMEs in the past week than I had seen in my entire life, which was 0 before, and all of a sudden I've seen a bunch. They must be getting good pricing on these because, prices are up on SSDs and that kind of stuff, so they're probably doing that. So anyways, so we get a Huawei, as we know the brand Huawei. Been around forever, Gen 4 NVMe. I've already tested this. In a different ACEMAGIC, that's nice. You do have a slot as well here for a second NVMe. So you can get 2 NVMEs in this tiny little thing, so you can get a ton of storage. Wi-Fi right there, MediaTek, easy to upgrade. And then your CMOS batteries, so if your CMOS ever goes bad down the road, in like 5 years or whatever, it's easy to access. And then your RAM. You can see here it is actually SOTA memory. Very nice to see here. And this here, because it is 14th gen, Intel 14th gen, it does support DDR4 or DDR5. This is the case where in 2026, we can say thank God for Intel. Intel 14 and 13th gen still supporting DDR4 because prices are up on RAM, but DDR4 is actually not up as much. You can get DDR4 for a lower price than DDR5. So, that's one of the nice things. That's potentially how they're keeping these things at such a compelling price, despite the fact that it's pretty stacked up, right? Like 32 gigabytes of RAM in this economy, 14th gen HX i7 processor, and good storage. And we can actually see, I don't know if you can see, but I can see underneath there, there is actually a big, giant copper heat pipe as well. Okay, now here's a look at the BIOS here. It's actually a pretty decent BIOS. I've already been playing around for a little bit. You can see you have your typical boot priority type stuff. You have your security type stuff. You have chipset type stuff. There's not really too much in here, but you can configure memory. You can turn it up, you can try to overclock it. It does use DDR4. You can play with it and see if it's stable. Try 3600. I would probably not go above that, but you could certainly try 36 or something. It's your choice. If it crashes, just reset it. You do also have CPU configuration type stuff in here, hyper-threading, whatever. This is interesting. If you come in here, you can change this. So this actually came as 55,000 and 65,000, which is the power watts. So we can see in here, we can run some Cinebench. That's the default there. around 15,000. Every run's different, but that's about normal. And wattage here, we're idling at, we're not technically idling, the computer's probably doing something because it's a fresh install, but it'll bounce up and down between 42, 61, 64. I think 65 is actually where it will want to peak, yeah. And that, when I played with it, it was kind of where it wanted to be. So I set it a little higher. I put it at, 75,000, 85,000, and it didn't seem to like that. So this is what I'm assuming is the peak wattage of the system here, 65,000, which is very respectable. We can actually take a look at the audio here, or acoustics right here. The fans obviously will kick up when it's running Cinebench, but even under a scenario like this, it's pretty darn quiet. This is right in front of me too. Normally it would be further away. Right, and that's one of the nice things about these systems. You can have this thing sitting right there on your desk, which is typically what I do. I have my mini PC sitting right there, right in front of me, and it runs just so much quieter than a big desktop under heavy load. You can see here, the initial run with that 65 watts is going to give you, 16,000, which is very good for a tiny little PC like this. It gives you what you want, basically, for CPU type compute. It's not going to match out this actual CPU in a bigger laptop, or a bigger device. So if you had a big laptop, gaming laptop with literally this chip, and it was running at 150 watts or something for a boost, and then it would sit down at 100, yeah, it would give you more performance, but it would be way louder, and it's a lot more power going into it. This thing is very respectable for what it's doing here. You can see after that initial 65 watts, it drops down to 55 watts, which is still very respectable. Okay, let's just look at a few other benchmarks. I just ran some very basic ones just to get a rough idea of some of the other stuff. So we now know how it performs. It performs just fine, especially within that limited wattage threshold, which is good. I mean, that's fine. And a little mini PC like this is going to remain quieter and cooler as a result. It's good. Wi-Fi here is about as good as you can expect. I don't not have the best Wi-Fi, and it's pretty far away. Mini PCs, that's on the upper level of what you get out of a tiny little box like this with not a huge antenna. So that's quite good. The upload is irrelevant. It just sucks where I am. The internal NVMe is fast. It's that Huawei Gen 4 drive, and you can see here it's running exactly as anticipated, so that's good. Very nice. Front USBs. The front USBs are all fast. They're all 10 gigabit. I don't know why I stopped that test part way, but the USB A's and C's are 10 gigabit, so it's nice to see fast USB A as well, 10 gigabit, and some enclosures do allow that, so it's very nice to see there. And on the back there you have slower USBs, but they're all still reasonable, right? The fact that this thing has all what I'd consider quick USBs, none of them are, the basic like USB 2.0 that's essentially designed just for running like a dongle or something like that. It's nice to have fast ones. And then as a result, I mean, mini PCs, this does have 2 NVMe slots inside of it, so you can get pretty darn good storage in it, but you can also run something like these. Like this is a 5 gigabit, which is perfect for that. This will max out those back slots. You can get a little NVMe or something like this that's going to run a little faster, 10 gigabit, and you'd get, you're using the front and get a little much faster speeds that way. So that's always nice to see. You got to love that as well. So everything's looking pretty good here so far. Let's put this thing to a real world test here. We'll do, I think, a little bit of video editing. That's typically what I like to do because it's a very heavy CPU type task. And I also want to point out that the fact that, this doesn't have the biggest iGPU. It's not, a Panther Lake Intel iGPU or something like that that's going to be giving you like RTX 4050 level gaming performance and rendering performance, but it still comes down to it. This still has good iGPU performance for things like professional work. So let's pause here and I'll get it loaded up. Okay, so real world performance. So this is a 4K 60 video, 26 minutes, 4K 60. That's a big boy video right there. So we'll come in here and we can start, scrubbing through, right? You can see that there. It's not laggy. It doesn't feel messy. If you do this on a lesser CPU, like a much lower core, a little 8-core or something like that, or 4-core or something, much weaker or older, it wouldn't do this. It wouldn't let you do this. Like you can hear the CPU is doing a little bit of work here because we're really taxing it, doing that kind of stuff. The fact that we have such a capable CPU means that the actual process of editing, like doing this part, is going to feel super snappy. Because it is snappy, because you have the CPU compute to do it. Like this CPU here is giving me the same performance as my gaming laptop. It feels exactly the same as that. Doesn't feel any slower, any laggy or anything like that. Like, it feels really nice actually. So we can come, we can even do more demanding stuff. We'll come in here. We'll make that one do something like that. We'll cut that video out there, and then we'll sit that one there. We'll do a transition. These are pretty basic, to be honest. These are pretty basic. You do have access to NPU as well. This is an AI equipped CPU, so you can do AI type stuff. This software does have some AI stuff in here, right? You can do like video editing, you can do voice translations, you can do all kinds of AI type features here. This is not going to match up with, like a Panther Lake. It doesn't have that level of NPU, but it still has them, right? And so you're going to be able to do these more demanding things pretty easily in here. So that's always nice. So this feels as smooth as my primary gaming laptop, which is a very expensive gaming laptop. So yeah, just take that for what you will. Come in here, you can do like some heavy 4K 60 type exports like that. We do have access to Intel QuickSync, which again, this is not a dedicated graphics system, so we don't need to run through this thing here. But when we get into, like an iGPU, it's typically, I find, if we compare this to say like a 5070, I have a 5070 laptop, RTX 5070. If we did a 5-minute video like this, it would be pretty quick. It would only take about a minute to do it, something like that. On an iGPU like this, it would be slower. It would take about 3 minutes, 3 to 3.5 minutes. So typically it's like not quite 1-to-1 with an iGPU, but around there. So the average YouTube video these days is, they're pretty short. 8 minutes to 13 minutes, I think, is like the sweet spot for a YouTube video. Mine are usually longer. But that means that if you exported this video and say it was an 8-minute or 13-minute, it would only take you, 5 to 10 minutes, something like that. So you just hit export. It takes 5 to 10 minutes to do the whole video rendering. That's not bad. It's not going to feel even close to running something like, those little like N150s or something like that. Like, this is a 16-core, 24-thread processor. Now, they're not all performance cores, but that's okay. It's still going to give you a ton of performance out of it. You get loads of RAM that comes with 32 gigabytes of RAM. So for me, that's very important because I'll have, a crap load of browsers open. I'll have documents open, Excel spreadsheets, video editor itself. I'll have all this stuff open at the same time. And even though I'm doing that, I still will have RAM left to basically make sure that my system's not bogged down. And I'll also have that beefy CPU. And this thing performs about the same, if not slightly ahead of my primary gaming laptop. So for, the CPU tasks. So it's certainly not going to feel slow because I do all my video editing on that. And this thing technically should be at least the same, if not slightly outperforming that. Okay, now that is the video here. I don't think we need to do too much on this one here. It is essentially a smaller version of the M5 because it's the M5 Mini. I've already reviewed the M5 non-Mini, and it's just slightly stacked up, a little bit bigger. This is the M5 Mini. It's a little bit slimmer, and it's fantastic. The other one was also fantastic. Here we end up with a mini PC that when you buy it, it comes decked out with, in this case, 32 gigabytes of RAM, which is crazy. Nice thing is it's DDR4, so it allows ACEMAGIC to keep the cost down a little bit in this terrible market. You get storage. You also get a very powerful CPU. An i7 14th gen is going to be quite good. 14650HX is quite good, honestly. It's not going to run at the full peak of that CPU because it's not slapped in here with some massive, beefy, gaming laptop, big, thick masking gaming laptop, vapor chamber, that kind of thing. It's not designed to do that. But it still is unlocked with good performance, like 65 watts, and then stable at 55 is still respectable. You're still going to get a lot of performance out of it. And when it comes down to it, it is still a very high core count, and they're not choking on that. So it's still a 16-core CPU here. So if you're doing multiple workflows, multiple things at one time, or work that benefits from multiple cores, it's going to feel so much snappier to use something like this than, like a little 4-core processor that you can often find these little mini PCs, or even an 8-core. Some of those are 6 cores. Nowadays, I see a lot of them that are, 4 cores or 6 cores in these mini PCs, which is fine, depending on what you're doing with them. Basic work, document editing, that kind of stuff, spreadsheets, maybe some YouTube, it'll feel just fine. But once you start to get into serious work, you want to have a more serious CPU like this. Now, as I said kind of in the intro, these are, I guess, most interesting in this market, specifically because they are cost effective. So they're very, very cost effective compared to building a machine, building a desktop or something like that can cost an absolute fortune. These cost way less. You get a ton of performance out of them. They are very cost effective, and they can really help get people into the computing market right now when the market is so bad.